Hi. Uh, I went out today and went looked in one place, and actually they had a few things. I owned all the things they had, but it was like, sometimes you get a good idea of the quality of the stock of a shop as what things they have, even if you're not looking for it. So they had, for example, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Blood Sugar Sex Magic. Um, what else did they have? They had Live, Throwing Copper, um, some Matchbox 20 album, a few other things there that usually if you see some things that are okay, maybe you wouldn't buy them or you already have them, but you think, well, it usually means they'll have something there decent. If you know what I mean. It's much rarer to find one CD in a sea of shit as it is to find one CD amongst other okayish CDs. Um, I can't really explain it beyond that, but this is what I found. This is an album I owned in 1995, 95, 96. This is Grave Dancers Union by Soul Asylum. I got this together with the album after this, which was Let Your Dim Light Shine. And I remember I bought them, it was a deal. You got basically two albums for the price of one, and they sellotaped them together in the shop, I remember. Um, so, yeah, I have owned this before, but I would have been about 15, 14 or 15 years old. And I can't actually remember much about that. I actually remember the other album, Let Your Dim Light Shine More. That was the one that had that song Misery on it. Um, this one, I don't really know much about it other than it has Runaway Train. It also says, so it says, includes the hit singles Runaway Train, Somebody to Shove, Without a Trace, Black Gold. Well, Somebody to Shove, Without a Trace, and Black Gold, I've never heard those three songs. Maybe if I play them, I'll remember them, but off the top of my head, I have no memory of ever listening to them. Um, Soul Asylum are kind of a weird uh, in in where they fall. I guess they're kind of similar to REM, and I don't mean musically. I mean as in they were kind of too early. Well, no, they weren't too early because they were in that part, but they formed in like the early '80s. This was like their sixth album or something. Um, yeah, sixth album, and they'd released a bunch of albums on independent. Then they had been signed to A&M, which is a major label, so Soundgarden were signed to. And then for this, I think they were signed to Columbia. Yes, Columbia. So this was their second major label deal, and this was their breakout. This is what they hit it big. And how much did they end up selling? They sold 2 million copies of this in the US, probably about another million, million and a half, maybe even another 2 million around the world. Got 200,000 in Canada, two times platinum in Canada. Um, they're from Minnesota, Minneapolis. I always remember that for some reason. But anyway, my point before was this is their sixth album on their second major label deal, and this is where they found mainstream success. And this was 1992, and it was the song "Runaway Train" that gave them the success. You probably remember that video where they show missing kids, missing people. I don't think it's just kids. Oh, maybe it's just kids. Missing young people. Let's say that. It shows their photos, and it kind of is showing like a story being acted out as someone running away from home. And at the end of the song, the singer, I can't remember his name, he gives a message like, if you've seen any of these kids, please contact your local authorities. Um, and that video always kind of made an impact on me when I was young. I think a lot of people probably had a similar kind of. It's quite an unusual thing to to do. advertised lost children on a music video that was shown on MTV. What else? So yeah, I got this today for $1. I haven't really even received it. So I got it for $1. Don't think I've ever seen a Soul Asylum CD in a secondhand shop in the 4 years I've been looking around now. This looks to be in very good condition, the booklet at least. Dave Pirner is his name. Pirner. David Pirner. I thought it was Pirner with the R before the I, but it's not. It's the I before the R. Daniel Murphy, Grant Young, Carl Mueller. All songs written by David Pirner. Produced by Michael Beinhorn. Talked about him a lot, haven't we? Well, I have, in my mind. He showed up when we were talking about Hole. I think a Soundgarden album. Other bits and pieces he'd been involved on in the 90s. But anyway, back to what I was saying before, is that these guys came around. Like 1992 was kind of the start of that kind of grunge explosion, wasn't it? That Nevermind had come out the year before, and other song albums, Alice in Chains and Soundgarden and whatnot. And so this was right in that time frame. But their music wasn't anywhere near as grungy. Whereas if you look at their Wikipedia, because I was curious to see how they would categorize their music. And at least on this album, they say alternative rock grunge. Alternative rock, yes. Grunge, as meaningless as that term is, I really don't think Soul Asylum didn't really fit into that at all. However, they did have, or at least David Pirner had, long hair, and they had electric guitars, and they sung about things that were not like hair metal shit, like, girls and drugs and whatever else hair metal bands like to sing about. I guess at least somewhat socially conscious or introspective. And so therefore they slotted more easily into that kind of alternative rock milieu. But yes, I'd say sonically, I wouldn't say they were necessarily grunge. It says here they were certified triple platinum. That means 3 million in the US, which is different to what this says down the bottom. Am I looking at two different things? That says 2 million. Well, fuck, who knows? They sold millions of albums regardless. And they won a Grammy Award for Best Rock Song. The single Runaway Train was released in June 1993, so a year after. This was released the album was released in October 92, and the single was June 93, which was their third single. Okay, that's interesting. I'm sure I probably do know those other singles, Somebody to Shove and Black Gold. But anyway, after they released that Runaway Train in June, it reached number 5 on the Billboard Hot 100, won a Grammy Award, and that really boosted the sales of the album. So it really wasn't a rousing success on initial release, but that's kind of true of a lot of those bands around that time. But, it wasn't always just a out the gates full on, massive sales. Sometimes they were slow burners, and it took a little bit of time for them to get up into that. And it says the album cover, now I'm not sure, will this be picked up by the algorithm and deemed, what's the word? What is the word? Not good? Man, sometimes my brain recently cannot pick out words. What's the word when something's kind of showing something that, I guess you could deem as offensive, but not offensive. There's another word I'm trying to say. Anyway, it says this was a photograph taken by a Czech photographer, Jan Saudek, titled Fate Descends Towards the River Leading Two Innocent Children. and it's from 1970. That's interesting. It was taken in Czech. Well, 1970 would have still been Czechoslovakia, one country. Um, so yeah, there's also Andy Wallace mixed it. How many 90s albums from this time period, that kind of early mid 90s, and in this alternative rock world, how many albums were mixed by Andy Wallace? It's almost like it's more common to see his name than it's not to see his name. So anyway, I wouldn't say like I was overjoyed to find this, but I was, like it's not a common thing to find. Like I said, I used to own it. And as always, I'm really, I guess kind of my main, I guess I got two purposes with my collection. First is to get CDs I want. And that what I want is a very broad spectrum covering, many decades from, classical music right up to modern day stuff and many genres. But within that, I guess if you wanted to take it to a more defined and refined search, it is for stuff released between about 1989 through to about 1997. And there's a lot of albums within that time that I still don't have, of course, but I'm kind of slowly, one by one, picking them off. And so, yeah, here's another one that like I said, I used to own. That was kind of in that wheelhouse of alternative rock that I kind of grew up with. Never seen anywhere before, not really ever been in my mind to try and find it, but when these things present themselves in front of you, it's always a good thing. And it's in, like I said, very good condition. Very good condition. I'd say that is as close to new for a second-hand CD that you're going to find. Booklet, disc, and case. The only thing not is the sticker. Actually, I was reading on one of the CD collector pages that I'm on Facebook, the New Zealand CD Appreciation Society, I think it's called. And there was a question put out the other day is, what do you do with these old stickers? Do you take them off or do you leave them on? And the consensus amongst most people was leaving them on. I think they're kind of interesting, kind of like, what's the word? I guess archaeological kind of references. It's kind of interesting to see the things they have on there. I also even I talk about that sometimes, the old shop price tags, like from the shops that used to exist, like Sounds Music Store or ECM or True Tone or those kinds of places that don't exist anymore. And also these kind of marketing stickers. It's kind of just interesting to see what they say, what they deem attractive to possible customers or buyers, consumers. So yeah, it's a win, isn't it? Finding something that once you see it, you think, yeah, actually I do want that. I honestly haven't listened to Soul Asylum probably since like I said, I bought this in 95 originally. I remember I lent not this one, the other one, the Let Your Dim Light Shine one, to a friend. It wasn't actually even a friend, a classmate at school when I was at high school. And he damaged it. And so he felt bad and gave me cash. And then this one, I would have got, actually might have been stolen. Because there's a few waves of my collection. My initial collection that I got literally as a child, I started, my first CD I bought when I was 13 years old, and up through 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, I left home 17, almost 18, and I left some of my stuff at home, and somehow in amongst the moving and the whatnot and the here thou, my CDs, which I'd built up a pretty good collection in my youth, nothing amazing, but probably there would have been more than 50. And this was back then. These were all CDs that I really wanted because, as you know, buying a CD when you're a teenager in the 1990s, you were paying $30 for a CD, New Zealand, which were at $15 US, and that was $30 in 1996 was a lot of money. And so I wasn't just buying things frivolously. If I was going to buy a CD, I had to be 100% sure that I wanted it. And so I built up a pretty good collection of stuff. And they all got stolen. And I've got a feeling that this was amongst them in that first batch I lost, because then there was a couple of batch 2 and batch 3 of my collection, which I actually sold off a whole bunch, like hundreds of CDs before I went overseas. But yeah. Anyway, I'll leave it there. No need to ramble as I am wont to do sometimes. Soul Asylum, Grave Dancers Union. A union of grave dancers, whatever that might mean. Oh, actually, just before I go, let's see, are they still together? Before I look at this, this is my prediction. They broke up, or let's say hiatus. They went on hiatus in about 2002 and got back together in 2008, and they're still together now. They've released 3 albums in the 21st century, and they're mostly a nostalgia. Let's see how close to reality I am on my... Oh, no, wrong. They say years active, 1981 to the present. So they've never had a hiatus. However, Dave Pirner is the only original member, which you could probably guess that, couldn't you? The rest of the guys have only been in there since the 2010s. All the other guys... Well, Carl Mueller, who was the bassist on this, he's dead. He died. That's a shame, isn't it? Well, let's see what happened to him. Oh, jeez. In May 2004, God, he would have been so young. In May 2004, Mueller, a long-time smoker, was diagnosed with esophageal cancer. They had a benefit concert, which Husker Du played at, because they're from Minneapolis as well, aren't they, Husker Du? Mueller died of cancer in June 2005. He was only 41. He was younger than I am. Jeez. That's, sometimes you think I think about that a lot, actually, and just the way that random sickness hits people, and you see these people, God, like some of the people you see around the streets, and they just look so unhealthy. And I'm not trying to shit on people who are struggling with weight or whatever, but you think how you're really lucky that you haven't been struck down by some kind of illness. Some of them quite, getting on as well. Even some of the guys I work with, and just they're about 20 years older than me, so they're in their 60s, and they're just so unhealthy. I see the things they eat, and the bodies, and the way they move and things, and I think, and what's the word? Who knows? I could be like that, but I really make an effort to stay active and mobile. When I work, when I'm not working, if I have a break, I am walking. Because I sit down a lot in my job. Well, I don't sit down. Part of my job is sitting, and I kind of have no choice. I have to sit. And so when I'm not having to do that, I'm walking. Just walking the streets. Even if it's raining or blazing sun, I really, really strive to get at least 10,000 steps a day in whatever I'm doing. And I see these other guys I work with, and they just sit on their ass. They sit all day in their job, and then they just sit on their ass when they're not working as well, and then bragging about how much they drink. I'm kind of going off here. you see lots of people like that all around me in society, and then you hear these like random stories of like some 40-year-old guy and who's struck down by cancer, and or even younger than that. It just seems like, of course, it's not like it does seem it is random, but at the same time, it's not. When you take it out, when you zoom out onto a macro level at populations kind of views, it isn't really that random, and the statistics do follow that people who smoke and drink in excess, and not even in excess, or people who are overweight, they do show up in certain disease cohorts a lot more than people who don't, and so therefore it's not exclusively random at all. However, there does seem to be an element of randomness to it, where you see these young people in their primes cut down, and you just think, that's kind of not fair, is it? But life isn't fair, is it? Really. I said I wasn't going to ramble, but I did ramble. We'll leave it there because I'll ramble more if I don't stop. So anyway, thank you very much for watching on this day, the 1st of February 2024.